Hello, everybody. Frank Kenny here. Thank you for joining us for this Facebook Live. Today, we're going to be talking about something, super important, and that is non-dues revenue for 2021, a source of non-dues revenue for 2021, and it's going to be through publications. And you might be thinking, wow, publications. Well, you're going to want to watch this. Ed, why don't we do a quick little self-introduction, and then we'll kind of start getting into this.
Hey, hi, everybody. I'm Ed Burzminski, president of Chamber Marketing Partners, a company that helps chambers of commerce generate substantial non-dues revenue from their Chamber of Commerce publications without using a turnkey publisher. That's a lot to say, but I'll explain that a little bit. I've been working with chambers of commerce, since 1993, so it's been 27 years. I got into this business when a publisher collapsed and was asked with a friend to help out a chamber complete their chamber business directory. And we looked at it and we said, sure, we're happy to do this. I'd been a publishing consultant to magazine publishers prior, helping them with ad sales, helping them with how to produce the magazines, and took on that project. And it seemed like a really, really interesting thing that what Chambers of Commerce did, being able to communicate and talk with business owners of small to medium-sized companies and managers and senior managers and potentially owners of larger businesses. And at the time, chamber directories were big, huge, fat things that you could kill people with. And having worked with magazine publishers, my partner and I thought, wow, what if we looked at these things and made them a little bit more like a magazine? Well, that was back in the early 90s or the mid 90s, and that model took off. So ever since then, we've been helping chambers of commerce, or I've been helping chambers of commerce produce publications. That company went away during the last recession. It was a turnkey publishing company. And then during that recession of 2008, 2009, there were so many chambers that were looking for non-dues revenue. They were looking for membership was down. All kinds of non-dues revenue streams were down. And at the time, the chambers were asking their publishers, could you give us more money? And the publishers were saying, no, the pot's only so big. So they couldn't accommodate. So the chambers turned to their publications and said, we can sell these things. So they were chasing the cash and chasing the non-dues revenue. Now, it's a good thing to take control of their publications, but there was nobody out there who was helping coordinate that whole process for the chamber. Printers were coming out of the woodwork, designers were coming out of the woodwork, and chambers could sell, but they really weren't coordinating the whole thing. So that's where Chamber Marketing Partners was started as a project management company to help those chambers of commerce produce those publications, directories, maps, and visitors guides on their own without using a turnkey publisher, using local vendors, having the money go to the chambers and having the chambers keep control of their non-dues revenue stream and generally make 20, 30% returns on their publications. And that was in 2010, and here we are today.
Well, let me interrupt you just for a second because we're starting to get a lot of chambers tuning in to watch this. And I want to ask them, the chambers that are watching this, what chamber are you with? Where are you watching this from? And then also, do you still do a printed publication? Because we're going to be talking a lot here about printed and digital publications, and there's a lot of different ways you can do them. Ed, why don't you continue with your self-introduction here? This has been very interesting because a lot of people watching this probably, they don't have much of a history of where we were as an industry. So you giving this background is actually very helpful.
So yeah, with the gray hair, this is from having worked with the chamber industry for 27 years. And I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up. I'm 55. Can I still do something else? But I really, really, really like this industry. I like the people. I like what the industry does. I'm very, very fortunate to be the very first vendor to the chamber industry to have gone through the WACE, Western Association of Chamber Executives Academy program, because I wanted to learn what happens, what's important to a chamber on the back end, having served the chamber from the front end for so many years. And I have to tell you, number one, it was very insightful. Number two, my gosh, going through that program. The Academy program is a fantastic program for people who are members of WACE. The training, the people that you meet, the networking that you're able to do. A little difficult for me because I'm on a vendor side. So, but watching chamber staff connect and lean on each other, absolutely fantastic. Chamber work is amazing work. By helping the local economy become strong, you're helping you're helping quality of life, you're helping with prosperity. And I see publications as a vehicle to help those members and businesses brand themselves and be visible. And yes, print publications, they are still strong.
Well, let's start at kind of at a higher level discussion. You know, there's going to
Sure.
be people watching this that when they think publications, they might be thinking maps or member directories, and they might not be thinking the full gamut of what a chamber publication is. So can you kind of, what are some publications that you've seen chambers do?
So it used to be the chambers would put together these business directories, which, back in before the 90s, they were the big thing for advertising, for businesses to advertise and be visible, because it was important to be a member of the Chamber of Commerce and be listed as one of the who's who. So that was a big thing, and they were big revenue generators, chamber directories and chamber maps. Well, these days, having a membership directory, I mean, that's really kind of a dinosaur because everybody looks things up on their phone and through Google. So these publications, quote unquote, air quote, have had to adapt and they've had to evolve and become more niche publications that have a very specific purpose, like a community guide, like a destination guide, a relocation guide, maybe an economic profile, maybe an industry guide. Now, all of those guides you add on and business directory or business resource guide or something along those lines. So they become much more niche and focused. And interestingly enough, printed maps, they're still a thing in certain communities. I'm really kind of surprised sometimes at how well these printed maps do in ad sales, and they're highly profitable, by the way, in certain communities. In other communities, they're just a dog, and it's time to kill them or just go away from them. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make an analogy to killing the dog. Whoops. Can we edit
Yeah,
that?
yeah, we're gonna have to cut that.
But and these publications, when I say print, I don't mean just solely print. It's print to reach a particular audience, and it's digital to reach the other side of that audience. So printed publications, like when you go into a hotel, you'll pick up a visitor's guide. Almost every hotel has some kind of a printed publications. If you're doing economic development, um, it's such a great leave behind when the economic development of the city or in the chamber is approaching a CEO or their location scouts looking at places to go. You can find all this information online, but having a leave behind where the CEO or a senior person just flip through it, look at very nice pictures and look at workforce development, look at what kind of infrastructure is there, look at what the quality of life is going to be for their employees. That's a strong message. And then their, senior person is generally going to hand it to a VP or lower level person, but that's a strong leave behind for economic development.
So for those chambers watching, I'd love to know if you are doing a printed piece of some sort, what are you doing? Is it maps, economic development pieces, community guide, visitor guide? You could go on and on and on with what could be done. And these can be really kind of small, or they can be glossy, really, really impressive magazines.
Magazine style, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So Ed, let's jump to the big, the elephant in the room here is when the internet came along and then social media came along, so many chambers walked away from anything that was printed on paper. And sometimes I think we overreact or we leave, an audience behind. Is there still a demand for printed pieces?
That's a really good question. Is there still a demand for printed pieces? If you're a daily newspaper, then you're really having trouble because I get my daily news from my phone and my apps. So that's tricky if you're a daily newspaper. I mean, who remembers the TV guide anymore, right? But if you're a chamber of commerce, there's a different type of element. When I was, the WACE did a survey in 2017, and 72% of their respondents still produced a printed business directory. And interestingly, 73% still produced a printed map. Now, print has a tactile feel that you don't get with digital. There are studies that show that when you touch and feel something, you're connecting better. Students learn better. Niche publications are always popping up. You know, Airbnb, a internet company, there's an Airbnb magazine, a printed magazine. HGTV has a printed magazine. Look at Costco. Costco has a really thick printed magazine, and they've got a great advertising stream. All of those products, they have to buy those ads, and that's why it's so really thick. Have you seen Cosmopolitan or New Beauty magazine? I mean, those things are gigantic, and you have to go through like 100 pages of ads until you get to the table of contents. So, you know, and then just go to any news. Well, when we can go back to newsstands and such, Barnes and Noble or Walmart, there are tons of magazines. Go to the airports, there are tons of magazines. Amazon.com magazines, you'll see tons of them. Magazines.com is another place to see tons of magazines, printed magazines. They are still very strong, particularly in chambers, again, because you're telling a story, whatever that story is. If you've seen one chamber, you've seen one chamber. You have a story to tell at your community, and these are great vehicles to tell those stories.
Interesting. So there's still demand on the community side. Some people like to hold paper. I mean, and these things aren't like a newspaper that is thrown away the next day. They sit on a table for a while. So there's still a demand on the community side. What about on the advertiser side? Do people still want to be found? I mean, is that still where they're putting their budget towards these things?
The short answer is yes. The longer answer is it kind of depends on who's looking for what. We had a chamber client that their board said that they wanted to cancel the printed publications because everybody's going digital. So they made a decision from the top down that they were going to stop doing their printed community guide. Well, wouldn't you know, several of their major investors that happened to be hospitals said, but wait a minute, you know, print is part of our advertising marketing budget. So we just won't give you that money. We'll put it elsewhere. So the CEO went back to the board and said, you know, that adds up to about $10,000 worth of advertising. Back up, the printed publication came out. The advertising in these Chamber of Commerce magazines and guides, it's more of a branding vehicle. It's more of somebody that's advertising to be among their peers, to be among the business community. And say if it's a larger business, it's a way to tell the community what it is, what nonprofits they support, how they support the local economy, what they're doing, which, by the way, those are great ways to get people to advertise, is to do advertorials and profiles. Say it's a company that has no reason to advertise. Okay, they passed on an ad. Well, what if you go to them and you say, hey, wouldn't you like to tell the story of how you're supporting the local community or what nonprofits you're doing to support the community? And they can do a little profile, and you get a full page ad out of them. So those are the kind of ways that advertising works in these publications. It's not what's called ready to buy or transactional, meaning it's going to get immediate response like social media does. If there's a pizza company that wants to run a sale, the chamber publication is not for them. That's a social media thing. Get coupons out, get that visibility. Again, this is more image, this is more branding, it's more longer term. It's like Goodyear Tire. They have 5 blimps up in the air at any given time around the country. They don't expect people to look up and go, oh, Goodyear, I got to go buy tires. It's another impression. It's an impression. It's a reminder. So it's top of mind. When somebody thinks about it, that name will pop up.
This is very interesting. I've been hearing from, this is an analogy or a story here, but I've been hearing from chambers that they're losing members because of COVID, and you can't do in-person events. They're losing those people that joined because they do their lead generation, they do their marketing through networking events. And if a chamber doesn't have networking events, then the company's not going to renew their membership, because that's the only reason they're a member, is they needed to meet people. And I'm thinking there's other members, chamber can do almost nothing for them other than help them build their brand. They want to be in a printed publication that's seen as really impressive, that's glossy, that's in every dentist office and every business in town. And I mean, that's their reason for belonging. If a chamber doesn't offer a printed piece, there's just no reason to be a member for some members. What do you think?
For some people, that's actually true. There is a chamber that we work with in the Bay Area that they get people signing up to be members because they want to be in their printed business directory publication. I took that with a grain of salt when I started working with them, but it's like, yeah, that's their membership renewal stream is we got to do this directory so we get our membership numbers up. I said, really? Yes. And it still works for membership development. Oh, you got to sign up by December 31st so you can be in our new directory or in our new annual directory. And people still kind of like, oh, okay. They do respond to that, surprisingly enough. I mean, so that they are still valuable. And yes, advertising is a lot of non-member businesses want to be visible in a publication to support the community. So, for a lot of chambers, there's the argument of should we allow members only to advertise or should we open it up for everybody? If you're looking for money, you open it up for everybody. You charge a higher price, just like a hotel charges a rack rate, and then you've got the member rate. And you put both of those on the same rate card so people can see, oh, okay, here's the rack rate, here's what you're going to pay. But if you become a member, here's your price. Membership has its privileges. Oh, and you price it the differential in such a way that it's compelling enough for somebody to join. And kind of for those people, you make it an afterthought. Let's sign you up for the advertisement. Oh, and by the way, let's take care of this. You'll be a member of the Chamber of Commerce. And here, why don't you sign this? Kind of make it an afterthought for them because it's not a priority, but you want to get them into advertise. Oh, and by the way, you get them as a member. Now, once they're a member, it's up to the chamber to continue to show the value. But of course, for the members who want to have that visibility. Oh, and also too, part of this component, when somebody is buying an ad, like a small or mid-sized company, if it's a major investor, they're going to buy the ad no matter what, right? Okay, we'll take the back cover. It's the hospital. They don't really care. They're going to buy it. But a smaller to mid-sized company, it's an investment for them. And they're looking at that as a return on their investment. It could be a lot of money for them. Even $700 could be a lot of money for them, right? So the important thing is to work on a distribution strategy. Now, there are a lot of good publishers out there, turnkey publishers out there, but the kind of dirty little secret of the publishing industry has been publisher will provide 10,000 copies or however many copies, and they'll show up at your door. And they end up stacked up in your conference room. Maybe some get mailed to the members and that kind of thing. But then they're sitting in storage, and you have to get them out. The investment in future advertising revenue is to get those publications into the community working for those advertisers, giving them visibility and giving the chamber visibility so people know, oh, this is the Chamber of Commerce, but giving those members the visibility. So by the time when the book hits, that distribution strategy needs to be done ahead of time. So the only copies the chamber gets are the ones that reserve for the chamber. The rest of them need to be out in the community. That's a very, very important component of any kind of publication. So you can tell people it's at the dentist's office, is at the HR department of the major employers. It went to, in Plano, Texas's case, it went to the management team at Toyota in Southern California and Kentucky when they were moving over to Plano, so people could understand what they were going to be able to do when they got to Plano. So I'll get off my soapbox about the distribution, but that's a really, really important component.
Yeah, that's got to drive a member or board member or somebody crazy if they pop into the chamber and they see all these boxes of maps or publication. My ad's in there and it's sitting in a box. Get those things out. Get those things distributed.
Yeah, why didn't you just ask me for the money? I would have just written you a check rather than lie to me that my advertising is going to be in this book and it's sitting right there.
Let's kind of move on here. Let's talk about the money potential. A lot of people watching this are from very small chambers, rural communities. But then some of the people watching this are from big major metro chambers. So can you talk about, can you really make some substantial non-dues revenue even as a small chamber?
Yes, you can. You kind of really need to look at what the track record has been with publications, whether you've been doing it yourself, whether you've had an outside turnkey publisher and you're getting the royalty. What has been your track record? That's the best way to kind of gauge how much revenue potential there is in a publication. If you've had a publication that's been doing like $35,000, $40,000 or more, then there's the members are voting with their checkbook and saying, yes, I see value in this. So from that perspective, you can say, okay, we've been doing $35,000, $45,000, $55,000 consistently over the past X number of years. If you do say like $50,000 or $55,000 in sales with a typical turnkey publisher model, you're getting about 10% or maybe a little bit more these days. The publishers have become a little bit more free with their pocketbooks. If you're doing it yourself and you're properly cost accounting for it, you're burdening staff, so you got to take that into account. That makes probably the most amount of money. If you're doing it kind of on your own with a project manager, you could generate from 55,000 in sales, you could probably generate about 25% return, sometimes even more. We have one client that in Nevada, through this pandemic, they're using us as a project manager. Through the pandemic, they were selling their destination guide and business directory, and their sales were only off by about 25%, and they're still making like about 27% return on the publication. So yes, they can be extraordinarily profitable, and maps actually can be even more profitable because with a directory or a guide, you've got multiple pages to work with. With a map, you've got one sheet of paper to print. So the more ads you can put on one sheet of paper, your printing cost is fixed. So that's why I say maps, people kind of go, I don't know about maps. They can be really profitable, people. One cost. Put as many ads on there as you possibly can, and it all drops to your bottom line.
I wonder when you think about these projects, you think about the lifetime value of members. It's if somebody's spending money because they want to be in your map and they want to be in your directory or whatever your printed piece is, the chances of them renewing is pretty darn high versus a member that joins and they're not in anything. Their chance of renewing is, well, I got nothing from the chamber, I'm out. But if they're in everything, if they are building their brand, they're going to stay in because that's one of their main advertising sources.
You're absolutely right. That really helps also. And I have a friend who has a relatively large company, a nationwide company, and he's here in Southern California. And he asks me, Ed, what does the chamber do other than call me once a year looking for their membership investment, which is pretty substantial? And like, well, okay, is that all they do for you? That's like really poor member management, and it was a very large company. But you're right, and especially when a chamber is doing it themselves, which means the advertisers are paying the chamber. That's a great way to monitor member investment in the chamber. Okay, so this ice cream company or whatever company has invested X number of dollars over the last 18 months or 24 months into the chamber, including advertising. You can look at that and create a package for them so that they're writing one check rather than you're going into their pocket multiple times throughout the course of the year and multiple people are calling them and they're like, oh, it's the chamber again. Everybody's looking for non-dues revenue, but it's a way to minimize the number of calls and make it easier for that company to make a marketing and advertising decision when it's wrapped up with their membership and such. So yes, it can be a very good membership retention tool when you embrace them and engage them into being visible in multiple places.
And you kind of mentioned this earlier, but I know when I was at my chamber, as we were putting our directory to bed, it'd be the final month or the final 3 weeks, we'd be flooded with new members. That scarcity, that no more procrastination. It's join now or you're not going to be included in the business directory.
Yeah.
And would flood in, and it was kind of like light bulb. Oh my goodness.
And new members are really the hottest for ad salespeople that do this on the publications. Those are the hottest ones because they're the ones that are most interested in participating. And again, you don't want to inundate them with all kinds of opportunities. I've seen some really, really nice marketing books, marketing packages that chambers have put together, which I can ask the chambers if I can share them, and I'd be happy to share them because they're really well done. Here's your marketing schedule for the rest of the year, so people know when they join what they can participate in. There's so many chambers that want to do that, and there are others that have really implemented it well. And I think that is very important for somebody who's a new member to go, oh, I see all this stuff, especially if you're on like a tier dues structure and you have your little menu of opportunities and you can bundle it in there. It's so great for somebody to go, I'd like to be in this, and this, and this. Can you give me a better deal? All right, if you're going to buy three advertising positions, sure, we can come up with something custom. So yes, visibility and knowing what it is that they're going to have available for them.
So we're starting to get questions in, and if anybody watching this, and again, I'd love to know what chamber you're with, where you're watching this from, but if you have a question for Ed in particular, go ahead and post it in the comment thread. Norma is monitoring this, and as we get towards the end, we're going to run through questions. This question, though, brings up, who does the ad sales? And this makes me think that we better cover kind of what are the various business models here on, you can do this entirely in-house, and we're going to talk a lot about that here in a few minutes, or you could do it entirely outsourced, or there's a third way. Could you unpack that again? And
sure.
Who does the advertising sales for that?
So the typical traditional model for chamber publications is the outside turnkey publisher model, where a publisher comes to the chamber and says, we'll produce your directory map, visitor's guide, whatever it is for you. We'll sell the ads. We'll put the publication together. The chamber typically does have to provide editorial content and photos, and of course the member listings. And then the publisher does the rest. Now, in that model, the chamber gets a royalty, a percentage, 10%. If you're a really big, high revenue chamber, then they're giving you more money because they want the project, and the chamber gets the royalty out of that. Publisher does everything. The advertisers pay that publisher, and it's that publisher's profit model to maximize their profit. They're in business to make a profit, and so it's in their interest to minimize their expenses. You've got to commit to a number of copies that you get promised to the advertisers. If it's 10,000, if it's 20,000, whatever it is, you got to print that number of copies, and then the publisher can control their costs by minimizing the number of pages. Maybe you want to do another article. We didn't sell enough advertising, so we can't put any more pages in. You don't have any control because you don't have a budget. It's their project, but it works. And there's some very good publishers out there that produce some really, really good projects, but you have no control. On the opposite end of the spectrum is chambers that publish on their own, quote, in-house. And with publishing in-house, now it's not a chamber's core competency to be publishers. But how many chambers still do parades and that kind of stuff, or fairs or festivals, just because they're chasing cash? I get it. There's a lot of cash to be had. So, and there are a lot of chambers that are producing publications in-house, doing it really, really well. And they've been able to hire staff, and and they've been doing it really, really well for a long time. I mean, beautiful stuff coming out of these chambers. And others, they're bebopping along doing the business directory. We're going to do the business directory again. Well, it's kind of like a staid old product, and revenue is kind of declining, and it's like, okay, we'll do the directory again. The middle ground that's actually where I'll toot my company's horn. Chamber Marketing Partners pioneered this 10 years ago, where we come in as the middle ground, the project manager, to manage a chamber's in-house project for the chamber. We bring the resources, we bring the expertise, and other companies out there that are doing this, but we're doing this on a national level, where we'll coordinate with the chamber on a senior level and then do all the quarterbacking work, getting RFPs from local members and all that kind of stuff. It adds management team to the chamber, but it's still the chamber's project. So we turn the royalty around. Chamber pays us a percentage instead of the other way around, and there's a full budget, so the chamber knows exactly how much money they're going to make. And from that perspective, if you're doing it in-house or you're using a project manager, that middle ground, it's up to the chamber. The chamber can sell the ads, and some chambers do a really good job selling ads. It's another touch for to touch the member and communicate with the member, understand what their needs are, and have a communication rather than, your membership is due again. Or there can be an outside sales professional that comes in and sells the advertising, whether it's somebody local. A couple of chambers have been previous CEOs. Real estate people are really, really good at doing ad sales, interestingly enough, and they just do the job. Some chambers, if it's staff selling the ads, they may pay a commission, they may not pay a commission at all, or somewhere in between. The typical commission for an outside ad salesperson is 20%, 20 to 22% if they're straight commission independent contractors. Some chambers will pay 10% to their staff, but an outside professional typically needs to get 20 to 22% or thereabouts. Staff, some chambers pay zero because that membership person or that salesperson is on salary. So it's like, okay, well, we're bringing in revenue to pay everybody's salary. And there's some chambers that do that extraordinarily well, and others with outside salespeople that do extraordinarily well.
Ever since I started marketing this live a week ago or so, I've been having chambers reach out to me, tell me that how much money they're making and the publications they're doing and how it's a major source of revenue for them and things of that nature. They really wanted to say, we do this entirely in-house and we make a lot of money. And I'm sure these publications are really first class, first quality. So, and then as we get to the end of today's interview, you're going to introduce something brand new. So we'll hold that. Let me ask you about maybe some just tips for people watching this that they're either already doing publications and they want to maximize their revenue, or they're thinking about doing these. How can you maximize revenue? What's some stuff that you've learned over the years?
Okay, this is indirectly related to revenue, but any type of publication, whether you're doing it with a publisher or you're doing it yourself, it's got to be relevant to your market, to your advertisers. You want to attract advertisers. So I would suggest that you ask your team, you'd ask key stakeholders, and maybe some advertisers, and maybe some people on your board, these 3 golden questions. Number 1, what do we want to say? Number 2, who do we want to say it to? And number 3, how is it going to get there? So from those 3 questions, you're identifying your message, who you're trying to message to, and how you're going to get that message in front of those eyeballs. When you're able to clearly identify and become much more niche and targeted with your particular product, you're narrowing down your audience, you're narrowing down your prospective advertisers also, but you're creating something that has a much stronger value proposition that will be much more valuable to advertisers. That's why I say ask some of the previous advertisers, what are they interested in those 3 questions. I'm a big proponent of don't build it and they will come. Ask them what they want and build what they want. So those are kind of overarching 3 questions. When selling advertising, it's just like selling membership. It's so easy to go into a pitch. Hi, I'm calling about the community guide business directory and blah, 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 blah. And somebody's like, okay, just like selling membership, you don't want to talk to them about your mixers and that kind of stuff because you have no idea who you're talking to and what their needs are. So my recommendation is when you're calling and reaching out to somebody, ask them about certain things about their business. Find out about who is an ideal customer for them. Find out how they promote and market their business. Where do their customers hang out? What are their customers? What do they look at? What are they reading? These people will probably know that. And by asking those types of questions, how much it's hard to ask how much, but what percentage of your revenue would you say you spend on marketing and advertising your business? If it's a more move further along business, they'll have a good handle on that. And then you can start kind of tailoring your message to them once you've asked a few questions. Is it a hospitality? Is it a healthcare? Oh, well, we're producing our community guide that's focusing on the cutting edge technology in our market for healthcare. Or, we have a plethora of varicose vein patients coming through here and we're promoting a general health section. Would that be something that would fit into your budget? So you kind of ask the questions, tailor your conversation, and guide it into asking them a question about, would this work for you? And you can even say something like, I don't know if this would be right for you, but you say something like that, and people are like, well, wait a minute, tell me about it. I think it's right for me. So there's like a way to kind of sell it, but from a different selling perspective.
Let me interject here because I'm thinking if you approach this the wrong way, you might get a lot of yeses because they want to support the chamber, and they don't want to tell the chamber person no and cause friction,
Yeah.
and that a member might say, all right, I'll take a quarter-page ad, or I'll take an eighth-page ad. What's the smallest ad I can do? And that way they can say that at least they're in there supporting the chamber, supporting the community, that sort of stuff. You got to get away from just trying to pitch them to be in the directory and instead ask them what their goals are, what their challenges are, things of that nature, because it very well could be that you, instead of selling a quarter page or an eighth page ad, you'll sell a full page ad. Like you mentioned, the advertorial to tell your organization's story, or, how you support, I could see where they do a full page if you ask it right. Am I right?
If you ask it right, and if you understand, like that part of that questioning would be, you're a fairly large company. What kind of nonprofits do you support, or what kind of community organizations do you support? What's the company's history? I mean, I know those are long conversations to get into, but they may not necessarily have to be, on the same call. Then you're starting to hear what you're saying. Oh, well, wouldn't it be nice for you to be able, or would it be a value for you to share that story with the community of what a good community citizen you guys are? Actually, we do have money in the budget for that. Great. Then of course you've got some of the smaller people too that, they'll be in because they want to be in. So sometimes it's transactional. You pitch, they say yes or no. You just kind of have to gauge it on what the conversation is. But it's always better to engage somebody in conversation, and you'll get a little bit more out of them if you're able to do that.
And what about, can you talk about the salesmanship here, that with a good salesperson knows how to ask those questions in advance and maybe upsell, cross-sell another chamber product, things of that nature.
Yes.
Do you have any tips here about if you are going to throw a teammate out there to pitch these, or find a salesperson that you need to really work with somebody that understands sales?
Sure, absolutely, because you can be narrowly focused and try to get as much out of the publication as possible. You've got to focus on revenue to get as much as you need to put the publication together. But if you're too narrowly focused and just wanting to maximize revenue for the publication with blinders on, that's not that great for that advertiser, that member, because there are other things that the chamber is offering. So by asking some of those questions and hearing what's important for that client or for that member, you could say, especially if you can find out what their budget is, you could say, you know what, I'd love to sell you a full page ad, but the key to advertising is more visibility and broader visibility. It sounds to me like our publication would be great for you from a branding perspective, to give you visibility at a higher level and at more of a quality level. And I would suggest you take some other money, take the balance of your money. The chamber has email blasts. The chamber has, this, that, and the other thing that will give you visibility at different frequencies, more urgent, more long-term, and you can take advantage of that, and we can structure out a program for you to maximize your visibility. And we reach X number of people, and we can use the word connect. We can connect you with what? Try not to use the feature words, but use the benefit words. The benefit words are really, really important to get people's attention. We print 10,000 copies. Okay, whoop-de-doo. We connect you with 10,000 prospects and readers who are blah, 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 blah. Would that be interest to you? Connect me with them, yes. I don't care if you print 10,000 copies. I'm looking for something that I wanted to share.
I thought you were going to sneeze.
No, no, no. There's a book that I have here that I want to share with the yeah, here it is. Okay, here's a tip. And this book was referred to me by a very successful LinkedIn consultant. She uses this all the time. There we go. Exactly What to Say by Phil Jones. The Magic Words of Influence and Impact. This is a great read, and it's something like 10 or 12 bucks on Amazon. I would suggest everybody, but I have nothing to do with this book. So, I mean, I just think it's a great read, and it gives you responses to people to help overcome objections before the objections happen. So
Good stuff. And I wrote that down. It's right up my alley. All right, so let's we've got just a few minutes left, maybe less than 20 minutes left, and I really want to get through the questions. So if you want Ed to answer your question, go ahead and post them. Norma's been bringing me then, and then we're going to talk about this new offer that you're bringing to the chamber industry here. Yes. So this person has an issue with their board. Like they might, as a staff person, believe in print, but the board might go, wow, our person's way out of touch. They're so, they're talking print in the digital age. How do you convince a board that print's still viable?
So the best way to do that is, well, hear them, validate them. Try not to be confrontational because that doesn't get anywhere. Listen to what their concerns are, listen to where they're coming from. And is it a decision or a comment that's being made in a vacuum, or has there been research done? I would suggest doing a survey of the membership and beyond the membership. If you have email, everybody has email that goes beyond just the members. So ideally, you would do a letter to the members asking several questions. How do people prefer to consume their content? Digital only, print only, or print and digital. The surveys that we've done across several chambers have shown 25% prefer print only, 25% prefer digital only, and the middle 50%, the bell curve, want to consume their information on both platforms. It also depends on your demographic. If you've got an older demographic, it skews more towards print. If you've got a younger demographic, they skew more towards digital. And that's where, these digital partnerships come in too, because you do the flip book, this is the digital version of the printed book, and you can also do websites based on just the actual book. So it's not a separate thing competing with your chamber's website. It's the content of the publication in a flip book and in a website. So you're hitting people the way that they want to be communicated with. So maybe ask the questions and do a survey.
And that was a good answer. I agree with you. What about the perception of value? The printed piece, you get to hold it in your hands. I think, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the person spending money to advertise is going to find more perception of value in the printed piece, but it's also going to be online as a digital piece. So can you use that maybe in your marketing? Say you're going to be in the printed and you're going to be digital. How do you do that?
Absolutely. In your sales materials, you certainly want to say that. You want to say in your sales material who you're connecting with the printed piece, who it's reaching, what eyeballs are reaching. If it's the first time doing a flip book, then you don't have any track record. But if you've been doing a flip book, put those statistics in there. The flip books that we host for clients, the average, quote, dwell time, the amount of time that somebody is spending looking at the book, averages about 5.5 minutes. And that's actually a pretty long time for somebody to be flipping through an online book or an online magazine type of publication. So you put that statistic in, and keys to generating traffic to those online flip books is you want to host it as a flip book. You don't want to put it up as a PDF. It's a big mistake that a lot of people make, is taking their publication or document and just posting it to their website as a PDF and saying it's up there. Well, who wants to click on a link that's going to download this big honking file to your computer or your phone, and you don't know really what it's doing? Oh, it's taking a long time. What is this? And the biggest thing about PDFs online, they're totally invisible to Google and the search engines. So whatever you put up there in a PDF, the contents are going to be totally invisible. use a flipbook generator. We've been using issuu.com for a decade now, issuu.com. You pay a few bucks, and all the URLs and everything are live. You can put videos in there. It really enhances that. So yes, you can put all of that into your sales materials, and tell people that you'll have digital visibility, you'll have print visibility. Even if you don't do the website, just the digital and print, because that helps overcome the objection when you're selling. We're putting all of our money in digital. Oh, well, did you know that our digital flip book reaches however many people, and the average dwell time is 5.5 minutes? Oh, again, overcoming the objections.
I like it. So here's a question. Who creates the ads? Do we have to hire a graphic designer, or do you do that in-house? What have you seen?
Good question. It really kind of, to use an old slogan, if you've seen one chamber, you've seen one chamber. Depends on staff, depends on expertise, depends on what kind of a relationship you have. I'm a big believer in delegating, finding the right people, whether it's staff. If it's staff, it'll take staff time. So you got to keep that in mind. And if it's somebody that you're delegating to, that's an outside professional, that's fine as long as you've got some pricing worked out. It's a designer who is doing the whole publication, whatever it is, they'll do the ads for you. But what I've seen is usually about 80% of the advertisers are providing their own ads. So they're giving you a press-ready PDF that you can use on the digital easily, and it's press-ready. So all you do is you drop the ad in. So
we've come a long ways with small business people knowing how to produce their own ads, haven't we? I mean, it used to be so complicated,
yeah,
and now probably not.
So what you want to get from people is print-ready PDF. And none of this publisher files or InDesign files or all that stuff. Those are great if they know how to use them. What's that?
Oh, I remember them saying, a vector? You want me to send you a vector file?
Yeah. Ages ago, yeah, when I was at the previous company, there were so many problems with that. I would say, no, people just send us TIFF files. What's a TIFF file? They're so gigantic. Yes, but we can't touch it. We can't change it. If there's oh my gosh, back at the old company, we got a back cover ad from a hospital that was promoting a whole new senior care facility, and it came from an agency, and the agency supplied the ad. So we get a call from the hospital saying, oh my God, the phone number is wrong. The phone number is wrong. What is it? I called the phone number. It was like a 976 number going, are you feeling hot today? Oh. And I could just see some old lady going, well, yes, I am feeling hot.
Always stories.
Yep, we could have war stories like crazy.
Well, we're running down on time here. I'm going to ask you some more questions, but before we get to that, you're introducing something brand new to the industry here. What's the new opportunity for the chambers?
So the new opportunity, I've been working with chambers, for 27 years, since 1993. And again, I really believe in the industry, and I do believe that print is a very powerful medium. And of course, it's evolving, it's changing, and and chambers, sometimes they hire us, sometimes they don't, to manage their projects, which is great. I mean, more power to everybody to do what's important to them. I think it's important to be educated and to know exactly how to go about this process, whether you're wanting to produce a publication on your own, whether you want to know everything there is to know about how to produce a publication, whether you want to be better equipped to negotiate with a turnkey publisher, or for a myriad of reasons. We're coming out with a training program for chamber professionals, on how to produce substantial non-dues revenue from Chamber of Commerce publications without using a turnkey publisher. It's an online training course that's going to teach you everything you need to know from planning a project, to budgeting, to selling, to production, to manufacturing, meaning printing, and distribution, and then what I like to call Kaizen, which is the Japanese ever improving, reviewing what you did, what worked, and tossing out what didn't work. So this will be an online training program that will be particularly for chamber professionals. We're going through the process of putting it together, and there will be what we call a beta seminar, which will be done live. I'll be doing that. And I want to extend the invitation to pre-register and see a webinar about it to give you an opportunity to pre-register for it. I'll do it live. I can get feedback from everybody about what they really want to have to learn. And I can then tweak that final version and make it so that it's as thorough as possible for the industry. Because again, I believe in this industry so much. I still don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up, but I think I'm going to stay in this industry for quite some time. And I think I'm going to go for my IOM since now I have the academy.
Right.
And so yeah, so that's really what it is. You can pre-register. It's not ready yet, but let us know that you are interested at chambermarketingpartners.com/register. There'll be a little field in there that says referred by. Type in Frank. And the first webinar about the whole process, teaching you a little bit of the process, will be free. And as first people that are signing up for or interested in that beta webinar, you'll get a deeply discounted price to participate if you choose to. So again, it's going to teach you everything that you need to know. And I think it's important for the industry to have as much knowledge as possible to make informed decisions, whether you want to go to this end of the spectrum or that end of the spectrum or in between. Full information so you can make informed decisions.
Well, let me interrupt you just for a quick seconds there. And you send us the URL. Norma, could you post that URL in the thread? And then, so Ed, there's those three business models where you got farm it, or like somebody's going to do everything for you, but they'll send you a royalty check.
Yep.
Or you can partner with them. This is the middle ground. The chamber pays you the royalty check, and you manage. Yep. You manage, and you have all the relationships with the publishers, the printers, all that kind of stuff. So they're hiring you because of your connections and because you've been doing this for 25 years. Or they can take it entirely in-house. And if they take it entirely in-house, they have the opportunity to maximize their money, but they might not know what they don't know, or you don't want to learn through trial and error. So now you're introducing a course to really make it to where, they pay you. I don't know what you're going to price this at, but I suspect, several $100s up front, but they earn that back in tenfold because they're producing this in-house. So do I understand it right?
You understand that 100% correctly. Through this course, if you can raise your revenue, lower your costs, produce a better product that better fits with your marketing strategy and what your advertisers are looking for, revenue is going to go up. Costs are going to go down, which means your profit is going to rise, and which means your percentage return is going to rise. Yes. And for those that are doing it 100% themselves too, okay, I'll make a little plug. We print so many publications for so many chambers. We're kind of like we have wholesale pricing. So we like to use members as vendors for printing and design and layout and that kind of stuff. We also offer those services. So if a chamber wants to take advantage of our volume pricing, we just pass it along to our clients because we concentrate so much with so few vendors. We have good control over them. And keep in mind, when you're doing it 100% yourself, you're paying retail because you're a one-shot to a lot of these vendors. We're doing this a lot with vendors. So avail yourself of that. It's available to you if you want to get pricing and quotes, and maybe some of your turnkey publishers might be doing that for you too. But that's available to you as well through us. But yes, we want you to be whatever end of the spectrum you're on, to have the knowledge to be able to do it as best as you can.
So it sounds to me like you're going to do like an information dump of what you've learned after all these years through a course that you're going to teach yourself. And yes. And it's a trial course, so the pricing will be cheaper now than it will be when it's all done. But if anybody wants to kind of learn everything they need to know, they can sign up for your course. And if they sign up for the course and they go, you know what, this is just going to be too much work, they could still partner with you, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So that sounds like a smart thing to do. Let's go back to questions here.
Sure.
Somebody wanted to know if they're going to do this themselves in-house. What kind of computer program do you create publications in nowadays?
Typically, the program is Adobe InDesign. That's kind of like the de facto layout software. You can do them in others. You actually could put them together in Word, but I wouldn't suggest it. It's much more complicated. There are others out there, but InDesign is still kind of like the primo. There's a learning curve. I just poked into it myself for the first time, and I had used Quark Express ages and ages ago. That was the king. And it's intuitive. There's a lot there, you know, but that's pretty much the de facto.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience? I see that there's just tons and tons of comments here, but I'm not in a place where I can answer or read them and then bring it over to you to answer. Ed, if people have other questions, can they reach out to you directly, get their questions answered?
Absolutely. My email is ed@chambermarketingpartners.com. My direct line is area code 310-295-2033. And there's one more thing, Frank, that I'd like to share with everybody about putting together RFPs for publishers. You know, publishers, whether you're working with a turnkey publisher or you're working with, a company like mine that's a project manager, when you put an RFP together, be as free and open with information as possible. You want that vendor to provide you with as good a proposal as they possibly can. I've talked to a lot of chambers that they don't want to share what their revenue was. I don't mean their profit or their royalty. I mean the ad sales total. That number is very important for a publisher or for a company like ours to put a budget together so they can actually know how to budget, how to price it. A lot of chambers sometimes in their RFPs say, we do a publication, this is what we want. They make demands. And the publisher is really a partner for you. Again, whether it's a project management company or it's your turnkey publisher, give them as much information as you possibly can. Don't tell them how much you made, because that's what you want them to be competitive on. Tell them your ad prices, what they were. Tell them how much revenue there was. Tell them how many members you had when you sold that book and the previous book. Give them as much information as possible. Try not to hold that information to the vest. It's better to share it. You'll get a better proposal back from those prospective vendors of yours.
Ed, let me ask you one final question, and this is just for my own knowledge. Have you ever worked with a chamber that they were making X amount of money and they thought that was a pretty good amount of money or the most their market would support? But once you got in there, you found that there was a lot more money available. Have you ever increased sales dramatically?
So I'll give you an example of a major metro. Now, major metro is a different animal than a city chamber, but it was the most dramatic. I don't know. Well, I guess I can share the name. I won't share the name yet. When you talk to me, I can tell you who it was. It's a major metro on the West Coast that had been using a turnkey publisher for ages, for decades, getting the regular 10%. Ad sales, this was back in 2012, 2011. Ad sales were $127,000, and the chamber was getting $12,700. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, but to a chamber with a $6 million budget and 50 staff, it's like, that's nice. So the exec VP there was staring at a budget because it was coming out of the recession, and he had a $300,000 hole in his budget. He's like, how am I going to fix this? So I talked with him, and we figured if he had used our model of, quote, going in-house, but using our project management model, he would have made $30,000 profit. So he was stoked because that went a lot further to filling that hole in his budget. Once we got in there, we brought in a sales team, and we asked a lot of questions. We kind of changed it from being a business directory to having really good content about doing a deep dive in the industry and the community in the area and that kind of thing. Sales went from 127,000 to 170,000, and the profit that chamber saw went from 12,700 to $60,000. And the exec VP was stoked. I went into the office to talk to the CEO, and I tell you, he nearly fell out of his seat when he found out. And because now the directory had moved from being, a nice contributor to actually being on par with one of their major investors that was investing $50,000 to $60,000 in the chamber. Plus, it made their marketing communications department no longer a cost center, but turned it into a revenue generating center. So everybody was really happy, after that. So that goes back to asking those three questions about how to really kind of position your publication to fit. So
good stuff. All right, well, we're up to our hour. Thank you so much, Ed, for sharing the information. Good luck with your course. I highly recommend people sign up for his course. See if you want to bring it in-house. There's a lot of money to be made through these things.
And let's connect on LinkedIn, everybody. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye, everybody.